Qua cái phần thứ hai là phần tìm kiếm cứu nạn và điều tra tai nạn, thì như hồi nãy đã chia sẻ với các bạn ha, là các bạn sẽ xem một cái bộ phim. Thì không chỉ là các nhóm phân công đâu, mà cô mong muốn rằng tất cả các bạn ở đây chúng ta đều sẽ xem cái thước phim này để chúng ta biết được rằng là một cái quy trình tìm kiếm cứu nạn và điều tra tai nạn bao gồm những cái quy trình như thế nào, các bên tham gia vào nó ra làm sao, công cụ để mà chúng ta sử dụng để tìm kiếm và điều tra. Bên cạnh đó thì sẽ có bao nhiêu quốc gia sẽ có liên quan đến hoạt động tìm kiếm và điều tra tai nạn. Thì các bạn xem xong cái thước phim này là coi như là các bạn đã học được luôn nội dung của chương 9 rồi đó, nên cố gắng là xem để đỡ phải học bài.
All that's left of Ethiopian Airlines Flight 409 lies at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea.
This accident was very unusual, very unlikely. Everybody was shocked that we had a major crash in Lebanon.
Turn right now. The 737 fell from the sky just minutes after leaving Beirut. Now, rumors of a terrorist attack are spreading through the streets.
It's the case that they've been hit by a bomb.
And investigators are struggling to understand the plane's bizarre flight path.
Often best approach is the Sherlock Holmes approach.
You need to check those scripts out.
Eliminate everything you know didn't happen. What time did he check in? Once left. It's probably what did happen.
The evidence leads to a finding so controversial.
This flight was in jeopardy from the outset.
Some still refuse to believe it. It's just past midnight at Rafik Hariri International Airport in Beirut, Lebanon.
Fuel is good. Low is calculated. The typical departure, the flight crew reviews its load, reviews the fuel, reviews the route, then runs through the company checklist to get the airplane underway.
Captain Habtamu Nagasa has been flying with Ethiopian Airlines for over 20 years and has more than 10,000 hours in the cockpit.
Exterior checks complete. Check complete, no problems.
The first officer is far less experienced. Aluna Bayene is a recent graduate of the Ethiopian Airlines Flight Academy. Tonight, there are 82 passengers aboard the Boeing 737. They are preparing for an overnight flight to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Many passengers are Lebanese. Some are Ethiopians returning home after working abroad. There's also an undercover security officer on board tonight's flight.
Flight security officers there post 9/11 to intercept anybody who attempts to interfere with the flight crew.
Beirut Airport has seen its share of trouble. It was the site of the 1983 barracks bombing that killed 241 American servicemen. More recently, all 3 runways were destroyed by Israeli missiles during the Lebanon War of 2006. Today, the rebuilt airport is again open to flights from around the world.
Beirut Airport is a very busy, very well put together civil airport. Its only difficulty is presented by the mountains directly to the east.
The Lebanon mountains rise sharply from the coast, forcing all flights to take off towards the Mediterranean Sea. Flight 409's flight plan calls for it to head southwest, then make a U-turn towards a navigational checkpoint called Checker.
Ethiopian 409 is going to climb, clear for takeoff 201.
The air traffic controller gives Flight 409 its final takeoff instructions.
Immediate right turn to checkup.
Roger. Takeoff runway 21. Immediate right turn to checkup. Ethiopian 409.
That is clear.
Right side is clear.
The captain sets his radar to display the weather,
Weather's on my side.
Roger. Terrain on my side.
while the first officer monitors the terrain.
Weather that night had mixed clouds with bases from 2,000 feet, overcast up to 20,000 feet, and there were scattered thunderstorms in the area.
Takeoff thrust set.
The 737 accelerates down the runway.
Speed increasing.
Check. You see that?
Rotate.
Ethiopian Airlines 409 lifts off just after 2:30 in the morning.
Their takeoff procedure and the initial part of the takeoff seemed entirely routine and ordinary and well executed. Gear up. Turn select.
Heading select. Check.
The captain begins banking the plane to the right as he climbs.
Ethiopian 409 control 93 Masada.
The tower controller bids the crew goodbye and hands the flight off to another colleague. Ethiopian 409, good morning. I'm flight level 290. The area controller instructs flight 409 to climb to 29,000 feet.
Flight level 290, Ethiopian 409.
But the weather ahead is becoming fierce.
Just like in here, you see the flashes. You're beginning to feel turbulence.
Sir, I suggest that due to the weather, you follow heading 270 to be in the clear.
One, say again. From heading 210.
Just a few minutes into the flight, something is going wrong. turn is becoming dangerously steep.
The airplane is being backed beyond its normal operational limits.
Captain Nagasa is struggling to correct the problem. He veers back to the left, towards the thunderstorm the controller wants it to avoid.
As you enter heavy precipitation, the cockpit will become very noisy with a tremendous whoosh. It gets your attention.
The controller sees that Flight 409 is starting to veer back towards Beirut. He warns the pilots again that they need to turn. Ethiopian 409, while heading 270, turn right, heading 270.
At this moment, the controller was probably most concerned with the fact that the crew had overshot its heading, would be conflicting with inbound traffic, and had to be moved away from a possible conflict with terrain.
Right, heading 270, right. Okay, what heading did he say? 270, set.
The cockpit fills with a disturbing sound. The control columns vibrate, warning them that the plane is about to stall.
What is it? Go around, go around. Right, go around.
The captain pushes the throttle all the way up to go around the tower. Ethiopian 409, while heading 270, sir. While heading 270, turn right, heading 270 now.
Whenever a controller tells a pilot to do something now, the controller is telling the flight that they're in immediate danger.
Speed is going down.
Ethiopian 409, turn right now, heading 270.
He was worried that the crew was going to fly the airplane into the hills behind Beirut Airport.
But their situation is even more dire. The chaotic motion of the plane is torture for passengers.
It's horrible. You're feeling a 3G load. It's pushing you down in your seat. You're getting splashed with your fellow passengers. Some of them were silent, some of them were screaming.
Ethiopian 409 Beirut. Ethiopian 409 Beirut. We've lost an aircraft. Ethiopian. We don't know what's happened and we don't know his position. Ethiopian 409 has plunged into the Mediterranean just 5 minutes after takeoff. The evidence needed to explain the crash is sinking fast. Within minutes of the crash, the Lebanese military issues a distress call to all available ships in the area. Local boats, as well as foreign warships, join the search.
My first reaction was this accident is very unusual, very unlikely. That really required a very good investigation to see what we could learn from it.
It's the first major commercial aircraft accident in Lebanon in nearly 35 years. Within hours of the crash, the Lebanese Civil Aviation Authority dispatches Hamdi Shaw to take charge.
As soon as I reached the airport, I had to try to manage the environment of the accident.
Right.
The hardest part is not to deal with all the search and rescue of major parties, from defense to the interior ministry to all the consular parties who have never done this before.
A former pilot, he's one of the few experienced investigators in the country.
So we gotta make this shift area right here. That's great, okay?
Have ships here, here, here.
Okay, so
Mohammed Aziz is his second in command.
First of all, we wanted, if by any miracle anybody had escaped, we wanted to be able to pick any survivor. Especially that the first hours they discovered 2 or 3 bodies. Most probably they were thrown out of the plane when it crashed.
have you any sign of wreckage? Negative, nothing.
Shaw is under great pressure to locate the wreckage fast.
So you want to answer very important questions to the family. Why my relative died? It goes to your head as an investigator always. I want to know the truth.
Nothing yet? No.
But the storm Flight 409 was trying to avoid is still raging.
Major threat to the search and rescue operation was whether it was high waves on the sea and so on. So this makes the search and rescue operation difficult.
Okay, speaking of whether they were flying.
Could the storm have been fierce enough to bring down a 737?
There were thunderstorms west of the airport. Thunderstorms can be very dangerous. They can interrupt the flight and the airplane structurally, and they complicate the safe operation of the airplane.
In rare cases, a lightning strike can damage the electronics that control the aircraft.
While a lightning strike on an airplane is not uncommon and usually doesn't create damage to the airplane, it can under some circumstances.
At the same time, rumors are spreading quickly. Flight 409 was the target of a terrorist bombing.
When you live in a country like Lebanon, every now and then you have fighting, you have explosions, and the first thing that comes to mind when you lose an aircraft just like that is maybe there is an explosion on board the flight.
As day breaks, wreckage begins to wash up on shore. ships recover floating debris and some human remains. It's painfully obvious there are no survivors.
The Lebanese army has recovered 7 bodies.
82 passengers and 8 crew are dead. Most of the plane is still missing. Without more wreckage, investigators may never know what brought down Flight 409. At Beirut Airport, they question witnesses who lend support to the sabotage theory. The controllers who were on duty at the time of the crash.
And I saw a bright orange flash. It looked like the plane exploded.
Controller, he saw the ball of fire at the place. He presumed that the plane crashed. So some people, they say that it could be an explosion.
Hard evidence of sabotage requires a close examination of the wreckage.
I have to go back to the evidence. Because evidence speaks. Part itself of the plane can tell you how the accident happened.
And so far, the inexperienced team is having trouble locating the plane.
He searched the second. Yeah, we looked everywhere.
We were able to determine where probably the aircraft would have been. Yet, when the Navy and the Air Force started to search for the plane, they could not find it.
A Navy ship is searching for signals from the plane's black boxes. These begin transmitting an alert as soon as they come in contact with water.
There is what we call a pinger, and it emits a signal for about 30 days after the crash.
But 2 days in, the search hits a major hurdle. Investigators learn the Navy sonar they've been using can't home in on the signals. It's not precise enough.
We'll never find them this way. They don't have the right equipment. We could not sleep. We were always thinking that we need the recorders.
Shout contacts aviation authorities in France for help.
We're hoping he can come immediately. That's quite urgent.
They have the equipment and the expertise to find the recorders.
Okay, great. All right, thanks. Right, they're on their way.
It was a learning curve for everybody, the leaders or divers or the Navy people.
With the right gear,
Thank you for coming.
the team should be able to search more quickly. But valuable time has been lost, and investigators have few leads.
These type of airplanes are flying all over the world, and if there is a problem, we need to take whatever corrective action is needed.
The United States also sends help. Because the 737 is American-made, the National Transportation Safety Board's Dennis Jones joins the team.
Welcome to Beirut. Thanks. We still didn't have a crash site per se. The flight recorded, which is always a big concern of interest, was still yet to be found. Yeah, flight track.
With no wreckage to study, Jones and Schaub turn to a record of the plane's flight path.
Get the radar track to the airport. It should show us exactly what they did. When we first got there, some of the information we had that was helpful was the radar data and air traffic control information in general. So we were able to start evaluating that pretty quickly.
The radar paints a baffling picture.
It's like no one's flying.
Exactly. Almost from takeoff, the plane follows an unusual and erratic path.
Once you see what happened to the plane, you would wonder what was really happening. As if there were no crew in the cockpit. It is almost similar
270
of a situation where nobody's in control of the plane.
Now that they've seen the strange flight path,
Okay, here's the track. So they could be anywhere along here.
investigators are more anxious than ever to get at the wreckage and search for answers.
And what we're seeing is basically an external view of the radar data and air traffic control, but we didn't get an idea of what was actually going on board the aircraft itself. So we became even more eager to get the recorders.
That's it. Exactly what we're looking for.
Finally, 8 days after the crash, the French equipment detects the vital signals.
That was found 45 meters deep and 5 kilometers southwest of Beirut Airport.
Cameras mounted on unmanned subs capture the first images of what remains of Flight 409.
We had the Odyssey submarine that had been used for taking photos, survey for the wreckage located on the seabed.
It's too expensive to bring all the wreckage to the surface, so investigators focus on the tail section, where the 2 black boxes are stored.
They retrieved the tail, the horizontal stabilizer, with the tail cone as well. They are still attached together. And they found the FDR located underneath it. We were quite delighted about that. And the Lebanese government immediately started making plans on having that transported to a facility to be evaluated.
But they only find the flight data recorder.
What do you see there?
The cockpit voice recorder should be nearby, but it's not.
So, it's got to be in the second, that's what we think.
While the divers continue their search, investigators study underwater video of the wreckage for clues.
Okay, let's start mapping this up.
When a plane explodes in midair, the debris falls in a circular pattern. But if a plane hits the water intact, the debris will fall in a linear pattern. The underwater video allows investigators to map the position of every piece of wreckage.
Another one here, lining up nice and neat.
In this case, we found all the pieces laying in the bed of the water in almost 300-meter straight line.
They also search for any sign of fire damage. you would look for a certain signature to show us perhaps there might have been some heat damage or fire damage.
Go back. I want to see that piece again.
But there's no sign that the metal was ripped open by a blast, and no burn marks on any of the wreckage.
We looked at the footage. We couldn't identify any black spot, black suit, or anything of the sort.
We saw none at all.
There's no sign of any explosion.
Ethiopian 409 Beirut. They conclude that the tower controller may have been fooled by a trick of the light.
It was a stormy night, so throughout the night you were hearing thunderstorms, lightning. And they do sound exactly like explosion, and they give you a bright light, even stronger than any big explosion.
Still puzzled about the cause of the crash, investigators turn to the newly available data from the FDR.
Nothing so far.
There are more than 1,000 parameters to analyze.
The flight data recorder, of course, it's essentially the instruments, another parameter from the aircraft, basically what the aircraft is doing. And that retains, in this case, 25 hours of information.
Almost all the data is normal, but one number stands out.
Take a look at that stabilizer setting.
It's a bit low, but still agreed. The stabilizer is part of the tail. Pilots adjust its angle depending on the weight of the plane. Move it up, and the plane pitches up. Move it down, and it forces the nose down.
Okay. Feels good. Low is calculated. Check the takeoff routes.
The FDR reveals that Flight 409's stabilizer was set further down than normal for takeoff. Such a small variation probably wouldn't cause the pilots to lose control of their plane, but investigators won't know its effect until they can test the configuration in a flight simulator.
At that point, obviously, everything was on the table. We knew we had a lot more factual finding to do.
I got it. Oh, here it is. The investigation takes a huge step forward when the search for the missing recorder finally pays off.
That's it.
Hey, that's it. Got it. Oh, found it. Yeah.
I have to praise the Lebanese Navy diver. It was with the equipment they had. They had to do a land search 45 meters underwater, which is quite difficult, but they were able to recover it at the end.
Investigators can only hope that the pilots said something that will reveal why their plane went down.
Fuel is good. Load is calculated.
Investigators sync up the conversation on the CBR.
Exterior checks complete.
With the plane's known flight path,
Check complete, no problems.
they listen for any sign of trouble.
We wanted to try to get a better understanding if there might have been some kind of mechanical problem based on what they were perceiving.
Ethiopian 409 waits near the cockpit for takeoff 2-1. Immediate right turn to check out.
Roger. I can take off runway 21. You can get right turn to check out. Ethiopian 409.
You don't seem to be going this right.
And once they took off, the first part of the takeoff was normal.
Turn right initially heading 315.
315. Roger.
Investigators hear the controller give the pilots a new heading. The plane goes off in a different direction.
As they approached the heading that they had been assigned, they overshot the heading.
He was supposed to turn this far, but he just kept going.
Mark, they're way out of course.
Sir, I suggest that due to the weather, you follow heading 270 to be in the clear.
Each time the pilots tried to correct their course. They turned too far and banked too steeply.
It's a sure indication that the airplane is lost control.
Ethiopian 409, you are going into the mountains. Turn right now, heading 270.
The airplane was rolling into an ever steeper bank. Its lift vector was decreasing, so the nose was dropping toward the sea. Ultimately, it was sparked.
Plane was out of control. There's nothing on the recording to suggest there was a mechanical failure.
Just with not hearing anything that showed a malfunction, which was consistent with the flight data recorder. It was just something that certainly didn't have any answers for in the beginning.
Desperate to know what brought down the 737, investigators dig into maintenance records. They learn that some 737s have a small but dangerous flaw in a vital part of the tail.
Hey, Dennis, I think we need to check those trim tabs.
Trim tabs are small control surfaces set into the tail of the plane. They counteract the powerful flow of air pushing against the tail, making it easier for the pilot to fly the plane.
To use an analogy with cars, it's like a power steering as compared to manual steering.
If the trim tabs were damaged, it could explain why the captain was struggling to control the aircraft.
I'm heading 270. Roger, 270. My experience of flying an airplane on a trip, it can make it extremely difficult to fly. It can even go beyond the forces that the pilot can actually use or input to counter it. You can bring that over here.
Investigators are in luck. The stabilizer and trim tabs are among the few pieces of wreckage recovered from the scene.
The team assembled to evaluate this aircraft in the water close to 400 knots, so we're expecting a lot of things to be damaged, so we wanted to kind of evaluate it to see if there's anything that was pre-existing that might have somehow contributed to this sequence of events.
But it's another dead end. A close inspection of the trim tabs reveals no damage at all, no sign of any malfunction. They did not affect the pilot's ability to steer the plane. Why a 737 carrying 82 passengers plunged into the sea only minutes after takeoff is still a mystery. Investigators travel to Seattle, Washington, to Boeing's state-of-the-art flight simulator.
Okay, we're going to run the Ethiopian 409. Going to set the trim to match theirs.
The flight data has shown that Flight 409 stabilizer was set to a shallower than normal takeoff angle. They now need to know if that somehow affected the pilot's ability to handle the plane.
You kind of get a front row seat, but perhaps what the flight crew were saying at the time and how the aircraft was handling.
Okay, let's see how this thing's going to fly.
The low angle of the nose makes the plane difficult to handle at first.
It's definitely not happy. The trim was misset for takeoff by a small margin, but nevertheless by enough to create an undesirable pressure for the pilot on the controls. So the pilot was always fighting the airplane to one degree or another.
But in the simulator, the pilot has no difficulty correcting the problem.
Okay, well, try it with no trim at all. Every single time we tried to recover this aircraft, we were able to recover it. They should have been able to recover.
They conclude that the low stabilizer setting did not cause this crash. Something else made the 737 spiral into the sea. Officials from Ethiopian Airlines still believe terrorism is to blame. They insist that an onboard bomb cannot be ruled out until more of the wreckage is recovered from the Mediterranean. The investigators don't agree.
Told them that it's quite a remote possibility that there was something put on board that plane. It wasn't when the plane explodes with the bomb on board, it just flies its own route and explodes. It doesn't go up left and right and up and down and then something explodes on the plane.
But stamping out rumors is never easy. Investigators are under growing pressure to explain what happened. If it wasn't a bomb, then what did bring down Flight 409?
In aircraft accident investigation, often the best approach is the Sherlock Holmes approach. What you do is eliminate everything you know didn't happen. What's left is probably what did happen. The controllers did their job. Turn right initially heading 315. The ground-based navigational systems were working. The airplane was functioning properly. So what we have left is the crew.
Investigators return to the CBR. They hope the crew's conversation can shed light on why two qualified pilots lost control of a mechanically sound airplane.
Exterior checks complete. Check complete, no problems.
They notice something odd.
Or even the speed of the voice or even the tone
It was good. Load calculated.
did not reflect what's actually happening in the aircraft.
Everything will take off roll. You see that? The captain saw something. He tells us, did you see that? But then there was no reaction from the first officer.
The first officer is uncharacteristically quiet.
Okay, he needs the autopilot.
Even worse, he's not following his captain's commands.
Hold on. Stop it. I want to change that.
The advantage of engaging the autopilot in that situation is that the pilot can then let the autopilot worry about the attitude of the airplane while he sits back and takes the big picture, maintains situational awareness.
The autopilot can adjust the throttles to maintain a safe airspeed and can keep the plane on the right heading. But investigators learned it was impossible for the autopilot to engage on Flight 409.
There's no way it could come on.
Okay, leave the autopilot.
It's designed not to switch on if one of the pilots is pulling on the control column, as the captain was. For some reason, the first officer didn't give his captain a crucial piece of information, that the autopilot did not come on.
And the autopilot is engaged when the captain ordered the first pilot to engage it. To save the whole flight. The interaction between the crew were not what we would expect from a professional crew at the time.
The crew's behavior is baffling. It forces investigators to consider an unlikely explanation for what went wrong. Something called subtle incapacitation.
It's very difficult to recognize the subtle incapacitation. If the pilot at control has a stroke and slumps over the control wheel, there's no question that you've got a person who's incapacitated. Confirm heading 210. Negative, sir.
To proceed direct checkout, turn left now, heading 270.
Left heading 270. Right, left heading 270. However, if the pilot at the controls starts to lose the picture and does so silently and starts to misapply controls or push the wrong buttons, it may take a while before the other crew members pick up on that value. That sequence is called subtle incapacitation.
It It's a controversial idea that goes beyond the usual definition of pilot error.
Subtle incapacitation can come from physiological reasons, psychological reasons, or a combination of both. It could be something minor. Medications could cause it, stress could cause it, fatigue could cause it.
Because commercial aviation demands such high levels of performance, drug and alcohol use by pilots is closely scrutinized.
Drug testing is part of any transportation employee, from baggage handlers all the way up to cockpit. And typically it's done on a random basis. It's not.
But there's no formal test for fatigue.
There are accidents with the psychotic events taking place.
The best known example is Colgan Air Flight 3407. In 2009, 2 overtired pilots failed to react properly to a warning that their plane was about to stall. All 49 people on board were killed.
This room doesn't make you sleepy.
Investigators continue to analyze the cockpit recording.
These guys do.
They listen to what the pilots were saying just before takeoff.
This room doesn't make you sleepy.
Here's the one on the recorder saying sleep. Typically, our antennas stick up.
Wasn't that movie I did it there? What's the reading it?
Did you feel dizzy?
Oh, I couldn't sleep.
Well, me too.
Investigators are shocked to hear the pilots joking about being tired, and the reference to weed. Subtle incapacitation may not be such an unlikely cause after all.
Trying to explain the behavior of the pilots on that particular night was really the most difficult part of this investigation, and this is why we considered every single issue, starting from the food they had, the type of rest they had.
Piecing together the pilots' movements in the hours leading up to the crash
What time did he check in?
is now the top priority.
In the case of this accident, the pilot's bodies weren't recovered, so there was no way they could do postmortem examinations. We immediately called the hotel to check the garbage if there was any bottle of alcohols, any drugs. Did they see the crew out having things or something?
They study security footage for any signs that the pilots were impaired.
We also looked at the footage of the crew coming into the airport. They were walking normally. Everybody we spoke to, they said, no, they were normal.
Investigators traveled to Ethiopia to interview family members about the crew's habits.
Thank you for taking the time to see me. Very sorry for your loss. I just want to ask you a few questions about your brother. Did he ever drink?
No, there's no evidence to suggest either pilot abused alcohol or drugs.
The captain didn't drink at all, so he was a sport guy, concentrating on the sports.
Subtle incapacitation is difficult to prove. In the crash of Flight 409, the evidence so far is mixed. But what investigators discover next could tip the balance.
You're up.
Employment records detailing the pilot's flight hours reveal critical information about the captain of Flight 409. He'd been working almost non-stop for nearly 2 months.
51 days, he probably flew something like 45 days out of the 51. Daily flying, just taking minimum, and it's legal, but it's just quite a lot of work. What?
The crew's last chance to rest was a scheduled stopover after flying into Beirut.
I need some food that we can an airplane. What do you say? Yeah, it will be good. All right, let's do it. Prior to the flight, they had a heavy lunch and they were not able to rest properly, so they were commenting on not being able to rest properly prior to the flight.
Did you feel dizzy?
Oh, I couldn't sleep.
Investigators suspect that the heavy meal affected their sleep.
Digestion and the fatigue, they definitely affect the pilot behavior throughout the flight process.
Sir, I suggest that the weather you follow heading 270 to be in the clear.
To what? Say again?
The storm conditions likely added to the pilot's stress.
The weather could be a factor in adding pressure on the pilots.
Fatigued and under increasing stress, they lost track of where they were and what they were doing.
This flight was in jeopardy from the outset. It seems that the crew was never fully on top of what was happening. Go around! Roger, go around!
Investigators conclude the accident was caused by a crew that was simply too tired or too confused to recover from the first wrong turn. It's a textbook example of subtle incapacitation.
We could prove that the symptoms that we saw are similar to the symptoms of somebody who has a subtle incapacitation.
The accident exposes a risk to aviation that no amount of engineering can overcome. After the crash of Flight 409, investigators suggest Ethiopian Airlines introduce much more rigorous rules regarding crew rest.
It's one thing to have the experience, expertise to do the work, but they have to be in good condition in order to perform.
As long as airplanes are operated by humans, fatigue, distraction, and other human weaknesses can only be managed, never erased.
I'm not sure that we can prevent subtle incapacitation.
We should at least try to eliminate all the possibilities that are related to human factor, because human factors are still the majority of most of the actions.
Check complete, no problems.
Rồi các bạn còn đó không? Cả lớp còn đó không? Rồi các nhóm các bạn là làm báo cáo ha. Nhóm nào các bạn làm báo cáo xong rồi các bạn có thể nộp lên LMS cho cô ha. Hoặc là nếu mà các bạn trên LMS mà các bạn nộp không được thì các bạn có thể gửi riêng cho cô qua email ha. Rồi. Phần sau thì chúng ta sẽ đi nốt cái phần nội dung của